Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr and I both survived Thanksgiving. He is on his way back down to Disney as we speak, as you're watching this episode. And I am at home for a week, trying to get caught up on everything that needs to get done before the end of the year, and maybe do a little travel planning for next year. Mr. Kerr, 2 trips to Disney in less than a month. Pretty impressed.
Yeah, man. This one snuck up on us a little bit, but it's for a good reason. My mother, Kathy Kerr, has always wanted to see the candlelight processional.
Yeah.
They read the Bible story and have the live choir. These are all things right up my mom's alley. She has not been very mobile in recent years, but we had such a success back in March with her on the scooter that she just really wanted to go again. And, of course, I said, yes, we'll take you down there. So, it's great. The grandparents with the grandkids having the time. It's Mrs. Kerr's birthday coming up, so we're going to let the grandparents watch the kids for a night, and we're going to have an adult Disney night, which I don't think we've ever done, just me and her, which is exactly what she wanted to do for her birthday. Let me tell you, if she could pick anything, it would be. But now that she is an annual pass holder herself, we might as well get our money's worth. So it'll be great, man. I'm sure by the time you're listening to this, we'll have some great memories and pictures with mom and dad and the grandkids and everybody.
That's awesome. I want to pick a little bit more on that in a second, but a little bit of housekeeping first, just for folks who are out there. And I'm hoping that we can also drag Curmudgeon Kerr out for a couple minutes to talk about Cyber Monday, which it's actually Cyber Monday while you and I are recording. So if you want to text us or leave us a voicemail, 571-293-6659 is how you get that done. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. The show is Miles to Go Podcast on TikTok and Instagram. And you can email us, ed@pizzainmotion.com. If you're watching on YouTube, it would be great if you hit that subscribe button. That's a big help to us. And give us a thumbs up on the episode. We also answer comments over there. Nice thumb, Mr. Kerr. We also answer comments over there on YouTube. So feel free to hit us up with questions that you have over there as well. And if you're one of our original audio listeners, subscribing on whatever channel you're at and liking our episodes is also a huge, huge help. All right, so I still want to talk a little bit about my European trip. We've got a listener question that we want to get to from our Slack community, but I want to dig into this Disney thing just a little bit more. Have you figured out where you and Mrs. Kerr are going to go do dinner?
So this is so we can ensure we get some more 3-star reviews for talking about Disney again. So I'm glad we brought this up.
If there's ever further proof that we're going to take the show wherever the heck we please, damn the millions of sponsorship dollars that we set aside. Here we go.
Damn the 3-star reviews, full speed ahead. Yeah, no, we haven't. So Teppan-Edo, right, the very fancy sushi restaurant in Epcot, that's $250 a head before any drinks.
Oh, you mean
highly
Takumite? You mean
recommended.
Takumite? Teppan-Edo.
Sorry, Takumi.
I was gonna say Teppan-Edo is not what I would call super.
No, Teppan-Edo upstairs.
Yeah,
I did that with Sparkle Mike. That was really bad. He actually got a refund. It was so bad. Never doing that again. Yeah, sorry. Takumi Thai downstairs at the Japanese Pavilion Epcot. $250 a head before drinks and about a 3-hour experience. Now, all of you guys who've done this have said it's fantastic, but I know 2 things about Mrs. Kerr. One is a 3-hour dinner, about an hour and a half. 2 specific things to this instance. About an hour and a half into a 3-hour dinner, she's going to be like, I don't want to be here anymore. Let's go. Like, that's enough. Second is, even more than me, spending $500 on a meal before drinks, which we would probably only have one each. She would just be irritated by that. So as much as I think it would be a really cool experience that I definitely want to do one day, I don't think that's for her. So I am open to recommendations of where we should go somewhere else that's, nice. Finding a nice Disney dinner can be a challenge because the food, honestly, is just not very good most places you go, especially for that kind of money. So I'm all ears, man, if you got a quick suggestion.
I do. Quick suggestion, we'll move on. My list starts and ends with Topolino. So, top of Riviera.
Oh, really? On the top of Riviera.
Yeah. Dinner there is excellent. They got a couple of really awesome fish dishes. There's a seasonal gnocchi. It's usually on the menu. So last time I was there, it was like gnocchi with shredded lamb and a Merlot sauce. There were some vegetables in there. Don't worry, I avoided the vegetables. But fresh gnocchi with some fixins, awesome, great appetizers. And to your point about timing, they can get you out pretty quickly. Not gonna it's not cheap, but not gonna break the bank. And I would normally say great place to watch the fireworks, but I thought I saw a note recently that maybe they're doing some work on the terrace, and so you wouldn't be able to. You can see the fireworks from your seat, but you might not be able to go outside and watch the fireworks from the rooftop terrace. So
I think it's going to be a little chilly anyways this week. But yeah, I was actually just looking at that menu as I was looking for a place for my parents to eat. They had the branzino on there, which is my go-to fish in a restaurant.
It's great there. My wife has had it a couple times. Yeah, when we go, we normally pass the dishes around, and so I've had the branzino. It's very good. I think the brunch there is pretty awesome as well, though I prefer the dinner menu. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong with Topolino, especially if you're just looking for the two of you for a quasi-romantic evening at Disney, since I know that won't be the most romantic place your wife would ever want to go.
And just a quick Skyliner hop away from Pop Century, where we're staying once again. So
very nice.
Not a bad suggestion, man. I'll take a look at reservations.
Duly noted. All right, let's dig into some things here. We got a surprise topic at the end, which I will not tease just in case it gets nuked between now and publish time. But let's start off with a listener question. This comes from our Slack community. Just a quick reminder for folks, if you want to help support the show, you can spend a few bucks a month, become a member of our Slack community. On the weeks that I'm not a slug like last week when I didn't have a weekly happy hour, we generally have a happy hour every week on Zoom to catch up with folks. We've done a couple of meetups around the country, and there are a bunch of channels in Slack where you can ask us questions. People there actually regard you and I as experts, Mr. Kerr, if you can believe it. And Ben, who I met in Minnesota at a recent meetup at the Mall of America, had a question for the group that I want to pose to you, Mr. Kerr, and get your opinion. So Ben says, looking at return options from LHR in August next year, keeping in mind he's getting there with that incredible Virgin deal that we talked about last week with Kyle, that Thrifty Traveler tuned up like 6-7 weeks ago, where I think you paid $29,000 a seat for business class.
Ridiculous.
And I was in the mid-30s at the higher price. Anyway, he's looking for flights to get home for him and his family. He says American Airlines now has a return flight for 45,000 Alaska miles and $384 in fees per person in business class on a 777. He has 4 people now instead of 3. He said BA is the same 45,000 Alaska miles, but it's $784 in Club World versus $384 for fees in business. Those are this is a difference of $400 for, call it the same sort of seat. I have not flown AA in 20 years internationally. I've never flown BA, but everything I'm reading is that the BA soft product is miles above AA. This is a daytime flight, so you might actually enjoy it versus sleeping through it. So I guess first, let's compare the products, and then I have a more general question for you. So, based on your experience, would you choose BA or AA if you had a choice for business class?
Yeah, easiest decision ever, and I've flown both these products this year, but I've flown them many times over the years. American Airlines business class is hands down better pretty much in every facet of this. So it's a very, very easy decision for me. I'm not going to provide any color. That's the answer.
Perfect. That was exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping for the least amount of color possible. Do you have trouble fitting into the BA seat?
I don't, but 8 across versus 4 across. So 8 across old Club World. Now there are new Club World seats, but
8 across a little bit of
it's a
little bit of a misnomer just based on the way the seats are so weird the way they're put together.
Yeah, and look, first of all, I am not going to pay more money to climb over somebody in business class. So you have to climb over somebody if you're in the wrong seat in the old Club World. 8 across business, not doing it for $400 more per person. Absolutely not. British Airways soft product is better across the board. I really would love to see this because my experience has just been the opposite, especially this year on my last couple of flights. Even flying British Airways first back this summer, preferred the American Airlines business class flight that I had back in February from Barcelona to Philadelphia. I found was much better. Like I just across the board, man. Like it's the seats, no comparison. The food really wasn't a comparison for me. Maybe there's better wine selection on British Airways, but you're certainly not going to pay $400 per person for that extra. So I mean, I really enjoy American Airlines international business class. Like it's been one of the most consistent products that I haven't had any complaints with, and that's flying it to Sydney, to Europe multiple times, to Buenos Aires. Like I've never had a really bad experience flying British Airways long haul business.
Yeah, so high level, I think I'd say a couple of things. First off, maybe it's just because I've flown a number of domestic business class products over the years. I actually enjoy sort of like the subtle differences with the British Airways product. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better. I also wouldn't say it's significantly worse, keeping in mind, I'm 5'9" and whatever I am, $170. Like I'm not big in terms of long or wide, and so I don't have issues with seats. like it's certainly not as constricting. The BA seat to me is certainly not as constricting as the coffin class on Delta that we flew from Haneda to Hawaii, and I wouldn't say I felt it was anywhere near as constraining as the previous gen Virgin Atlantic product, where you're sort of like wedged in, angled, like sort of like, is that reverse herringbone?
Unflyable is what it is.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Okay, yeah, however you want to spell that. So, I mean, there's some of that for me in terms of overall seat comfort. I think from a Club World product standpoint, like I get what you're saying about. I'm also not sure that they're all 8 across anymore. But
no, they're not. There are some new Club World that are 4 across, but the 8 across is still very much more plentiful. So,
yeah, so I think
you always run the risk at the last minute of a whole swap, and now you're in trouble. So it's just not worth the risk at all to be flying 8 across versus 4 across.
Yeah, I didn't have as much of a problem with the way the seats exited and getting across the person as some others do. I understand that this is like almost blasphemous for some folks who are like, oh my God, I can't believe you would ever do that and climb across the person. What I would say, like a couple of things that I like about British Airways, they're nice touches. I think the food, generally speaking, from a soft product standpoint, maybe it's not better than American, but it's different, and there's some nice touches. Like, they come around and do the scone service and stuff like that. It's just a little bit more interactive. You didn't get scones?
First class, it is toast now, unless you're flying all the way to the West Coast. Yeah, no more high tea service in first class. I was like, what is? It was
heartbroken. I need scones.
It is always tough to sit in first class, right? First world problems. But literally, my British Airways first flights this year were the exact same as American business. Like, there was not much of a difference with the airport experience aside, right? Concorde room and Heathrow and all that is great. So that's a step above. But on board, man, British Airways first is like a solid international business class now, and then Club World 8 across is just there's just no way.
Well, I
would even go so far as to say if it was the other way around and I got to pay more to be an American than British Airways, I would still do that.
Well, they used to do scones in business class, for what it's worth, too. I mean, I'm not saying even first. They used to offer scones and tea in business class. Now, whether
man, adios.
So let's see. So let's zoom out a little bit on this question, because you actually alluded to the second question that I want to touch on. This is called $400 a person difference. So let's talk daytime flight first, and then we'll talk nighttime flight. Very quickly. First off, can you think of, like, would you say that the Delta coffin class is the worst, widespread product from the U.S. for a business class standpoint that our readers would come, or listeners and viewers would come in contact with?
100%. You just continually slide down in the seat the entire time with it's awful. Yeah.
So using that as our barometer, as call it, like, the worst seat, if you will, would you, on a daytime flight, would you pay $400 more per person to sit in? Is Polaris a good compromise middle of the road seat to say, like that's a upper middle of what's out there for common seats?
Yeah, I find Polaris incredibly comfortable. Sure, really.
So so on a daytime flight, let's talk nighttime is separate, but daytime flight, would you spend $400 a person to fly in Polaris versus Delta coffin class?
No, my decision there would be I'm just going to do premium economy on Delta. Like, I'm not paying $800 a person, right, for a transatlantic from Western Europe. At that point, you just go down to the best economy product you can get.
I would agree with you on that. That would be my 2 cents as well. I would say if I didn't like the business class seat I could get using points, I would consider premium economy for a daytime flight. I wouldn't pay extra for a daytime flight from Europe to the U.S. for pretty much anything, to be honest, in business class. To me, they're all roughly the same. And to your point, premium economy is perfectly fine for a daytime flight. So I think that's part one. Part two, now let's flip it around the other way. Let's say it's a long enough red eye. It's not a New York to Heathrow, which is like a 45-minute nap for you.
Yeah.
Let's just say you're leaving from Chicago or Denver or something like that. It's a worthwhile long flight. Would you spend $400 extra to upgrade from Delta business class to Polaris?
For one person, yes. Again, if it's a family of 4 flying, then we're just doing premium economy again. Like, that's not $1,600. Just defeats the entire purpose, right? You can just get economy for that price. So, but luckily you don't have that UK departure duty from the US. So that decision's not very often do you face that going the other way.
No, I'm just curious what your concerns were there. I would say my choice is pretty similar to yours. I wouldn't pay $1,600 for my family of 4 to fly, Polaris versus Delta coffin class, but I would not downgrade to premium economy. I would just take a different trip. I don't want to fly premium economy on a red eye anymore. I'm too old. The body doesn't work well enough.
I am not above positioning to find the right product to get across the Atlantic. I will say that. Probably my other thing I'll do before I settle for paying that much money for a crappy business class product.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my European trip, and then from there we'll cover our mystery topic. So I went from Newark to London on the daytime flight, which was a $1 million flight that we talked about not last week, but the week before. I had a meeting and then hopped over to Berlin for a couple of days on the weekend, then from Berlin back to London for another meeting, and then down to Lisbon. So I just sort of want to touch on the hotels for a second, and then just some brief comments on Berlin. Have you been to Berlin, by the way?
I have not been to Berlin. Nope.
Okay, so I'll share my thoughts on this, and I'll be curious to hear what our listeners and viewers think about it. First off is I stayed Hyatt Place London City East, which is right near London City Airport. Have you ever stayed at that property?
Nope.
So it was about, in true like London fashion, it's 20 minutes by car or like 40 minutes by train from London City. There's another Hyatt that's closer. I'm looking up the name of it while we're talking. But it's sort of in no man's land. Like, it's certainly obviously a lot closer to London City than Heathrow or Gatwick or any other airports, but a little bit no man's land. Rooms were small, but the reason why I chose it was 12,000 points a night the night that I was there, so it was a very affordable property for London. Rooms were a bit on the small side, but they had a really nice rooftop bar, which is where you had breakfast, so that was a really nice plus. Overall, I would say I was pretty pleased with the property. It's your typical Hyatt place, but like with a little bit of like obviously a better breakfast and those sorts of things. So definitely enjoyed that. I would say for folks who are looking for Hyatts to stay at, I would say for a couple, certainly, the rooms were small enough. I don't think I'd want to consider it for, more than that. Like, 2 kids and 2 adults in a room would be really tight there if they do have four person occupancy rooms. So that would be my only concern there. But another new Hyatt in the mix that I would definitely consider. The Hyatt Regency London Stratford is, I think, the one that I stayed at near London City Airport last time, which is also an enjoyable property. I got to fly out of London City Airport again, which you and I both enjoy.
Lovely experience.
Yeah. So I did Grand Hyatt Berlin, which is, obviously, since I had never been there before, another new property for me. That's a Category 4 property. In typical Hyatt fashion, they upgraded me to an unbelievable room. It was I'm gonna forget the name of the suite at the moment, but it was a named suite with a massive living room, huge bedroom, steam sauna, massive bathtub, the whole bit. So unbelievable upgrade, which was great. But more importantly, as a Category 4, that was also 12,000 points a night. So really affordable rooms in some of these places for Europe. The other property I was considering, if I had stayed longer, there's a Linder property there, which is part of Joie de Vivre. That's a Category 2 property. And Category 2 is 6,500 to 9,500 Hyatt points a night. Property looks nice, looks, like a nicer version of a Hyatt Place sort of thing. Gets very good reviews on the Hyatt website, the whole bit. So definitely some affordable options in Berlin. There's an actual working club lounge at the Grand Hyatt in Berlin.
Ooh,
something we don't see a lot
nice.
of. Nighttime drinks, nighttime appetizers, breakfast was real nice. So there were, definitely plenty of positives there. My brief opinion walking around Berlin. So I'd say the 2 most substantial things I did were I went to Charlie's Checkpoint Charlie, and then I went to go see some remnants of the wall. And it was more just coincident than anything else. I got up super early in the morning because I was short on time. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. It was very cold, like high 30s, foggy, misty, sort of like a dreary day. And I walked the wall, and I never knew this. I remember seeing the wall come down when I was younger. I'm trying to remember how old you would have been when the wall came down. Were you born?
3.
Yeah, okay. So it was consequential for me when the wall came down from a historical standpoint. I wasn't old enough to remember the wall going up, obviously, but it coming down was pretty substantial, and a decent chunk of the wall is still there. And interestingly, they turned it into an art exhibit. And so a group got together, and in each panel of the wall was decorated by a specific artist. And some of them are very hopeful paintings. Others depict some of the struggle of, East Berlin versus West Berlin, communism versus capitalism, all that stuff, democracy. Yeah, and so it was very interesting to see all the different messages. And I would certainly highly recommend anybody who goes to Berlin should go see it and understand it. Checkpoint Charlie was, I don't know, is probably a little bit more commercialized than I expected it to be. Like, there were a handful of museums selling souvenirs and stuff like that. There was a decent museum that talked about it and, helped educate people on it. A little bit too commercialized. I'm still glad I did it, but I would certainly say that it was worth, it was worth spending 36 hours in Berlin to experience those couple of things. I would definitely go back for a couple more days to explore more of the city. But I was happy to have done it and seen those couple of things. I can't imagine the wall's coming down anytime soon, so I'm sure you have plenty of time to see it, but I'm glad I've got a chance to see it.
I have wanted to go to Berlin for a long time. I'm a huge World War II nerd. Actually, me and Thomas yesterday, for the 18th or 19th time, watched the Tom Hanks movie Greyhound on Apple TV Plus. If you haven't seen this movie, it's probably my favorite movie of the last 5 years. Fantastic. He's a World War II Navy captain fighting the German U-boats, and I just think it's incredibly well done. But anything World War II, I've probably watched it, get into it, and I've just always wondered, how much of that is still left in Berlin where you can go check it out. So it's definitely on the list to go. It's just, Berlin is surprisingly not a convenient place to get to as far as like major European cities get. Like, nonstop flights to Berlin from the U.S. are rare compared to other places in Germany that you can connect, which is really kind of interesting and always kind of led me to wonder, like, is Frankfurt and Munich that much more of a bigger deal than Berlin is these days?
Well, I think it's more of a byproduct of how the airlines have worked out there, because Air Berlin, which was part of Star Alliance, part of One World, they fell over, and so it's like the airport's fine, it's nice, it's not
brand new, right? You flew into the new airport.
Yeah. The old one doesn't really exist anymore. It was, I waited a long time in custom stuff like that. Like, it's not super, it's fine, but I just think it's, like Lufthansa has always been a Frankfurt and Munich airline, and Air Berlin was the Berlin airline, and it's just sort of like the forgotten stepchild now. So that's, I think it's a big part of why it's difficult to get in there.
Probably as just alluded to, airport problems that they've had, where how long did it take them to build this new airport?
That's why when you said it was a new airport, I started laughing, because it was like it was finished in like 2015, but I think it only opened for commercial traffic like 3 or 4 years ago. So, but it's got a nice observation deck on the top, like definitely from an AvGeek standpoint, worth the price of walking around a bit and getting to see the planes and things like that. But definitely we'll put it on people's list. To your point, harder to get to from the U.S., but plenty of connecting traffic once you get to.
I've heard great things about that Grand Hyatt Berlin, so glad to know it's a place to use my soon-to-be expiring Category 1 to 4 certificates.
Definitely a great place to use certificates. Like I said, they treated me really well.
I actually just stayed at a Category 4 Andaz over the Thanksgiving holidays, and the dummy that I am forgot to use one of my expiring certificates and use points, because I assumed that it wasn't a Category 1 to 4 hotels in Andaz.
Good job.
So yeah,
good job.
I checked out and was like, well, that was really dumb.
I do want to talk more about Lisbon, my time there. I've been there a handful of times, but I stayed at a really interesting Mr. and Mrs. Smith property. But I want to make sure we leave enough time to talk about Bilt stuff, and we'll have a couple of dings in here or there. But I want to make sure we have time for that, because we can always talk about Mr. and Mrs. Smith next week, assuming you survive Disney World and your romantic night out with your wife and Mickey Mouse.
We should. Surprisingly cold, down to 40 degrees in Orlando tomorrow. So it'll be that's the coldest I've ever been down there.
Yeah. And by the way, just so you know, don't ask me how I know this, but sweaters inside the park are really expensive, so you should probably bring one. Blankets too. Just FYI. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this letter. I think when I think about, we had a discussion in the Slack community a handful of days ago. When I think about Bilt, maybe it's just because I'm a business nerd, if you will, and I'm always wondering how businesses make money. I think a lot of the pieces of how you guys make money are things that make sense to me, but it's a question that comes up a lot, and it just came up recently in the Slack community. And so I think the letter that your CEO Ankur sent out, really talked to some of these things that you and I see as questions in the Slack community. You've mentioned to me how many people ask about this on Reddit. It's sort of like this, I guess at a high level, there's this belief that the only reason the Bilt model works is because of a bunch of VC cash that keeps you guys afloat. Where when I look at different sorts of partnerships that you guys have, I can see in a lot of cases the way that partnership is profitable and how you guys are splitting up those profits to reward your members. This is probably a good place to start this.
Yeah, Jeremiah, you can forgo some of the dings here. But, first of all, I want to let everybody know this is coming from, like, the whole purpose of this letter. If you're a Bilt member, you should have gotten this letter by now. But the whole purpose of this is to just give an objective, transparent look at the business today and answer the most common question that we've gotten since I started, before we launched in 2021 of how does Bilt make money? Because there's a lot of just really bad assumptions out there, and that's our fault for not communicating this more clear. And it's something that a lot of us have been pressing the business on. And, our CEO decided, like, let's just do this in true Bilt fashion and be transparent. So, the whole genesis is how does Bilt make money, and then what is in store for us in 2025. So I hope if you got the letter that it was very helpful, it was very insightful. And I'll tell you, man, I keep seeing the same things pop up in Reddit over and over again. And you've heard me mention Reddit. Somehow I've gotten this like unofficial title of Bilt Reddit overseer. I just comment and answer a lot of questions in there.
And a bunch of anonymous Reddit accounts now that keep asking you uncomfortable questions. That's my goal in life.
Yeah. Or actually what I have to do is anytime I want to comment on something on Reddit, not Bilt related, I now have to use my other accounts so that people aren't like, man, this guy likes a lot of baseball card stuff. But, I'll say one thing here is, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know Bilt as a co-brand card. We're just going to get really nerdy in the day job for this segment, again, to answer the most common question. All right, Bilt does have a co-brand card, but we are a loyalty platform for home and neighborhood. Bilt today is the largest loyalty platform and one of the largest payment providers in the entire United States. Ed, how much rent do you think Bilt is processing a year? I don't know if you already cheated and read the note. Read the note, but you probably did. So
I did. I did read the note. I will say the surprising number for me was the percentage of credit cards. I knew it was low, but yeah, the number. I thought that the biggest thing was the jump. The fact that you guys jumped from $11 billion in rent to $36 billion. That's a massive jump.
Yeah. Currently at a $36 billion run rate. So while you know Bilt today for the co-brand card, as we've said many times publicly, including in this letter, that is only 15% of our member base that has the co-brand card. So think of us just like any other loyalty platform or program, like a Marriott Bonvoy, like a Delta Sky Miles. They have an airline, they have their loyalty program, and then they have a co-brand card for people who really want to supercharge their earnings with that program and engage. We are the same thing. Bilt is a loyalty platform. We have rent and soon-to-be mortgage payments. Mm-hmm. And for people who earn those points at home and in their neighborhood around them, if you want to supercharge your earnings, you can get the Bilt co-brand card issued by Wells Fargo. So while that is a great portfolio and it continues to outperform all of our expectations, it is just a small portion of the Bilt business today and what the platform is. So your next logical question is, well, what is the Bilt platform?
What is the big part? What is the big part of the platform? Because you're right. Credit cards are only 15%. I've known it's been a minority. I just didn't realize that it hadn't grown to call it 25 or 30%. So tell us about the rest of the flywheel.
Yeah, so there's three parts of what we call, essentially the Bilt flywheel. The first is residential payment processing. The second is connected commerce, which is our neighborhood rewards platform. And our third has really come to light in just a few months, and that is leasing and home buying incentives. So I'm just going to very briefly go through each one of these. So first, residential payment processing. What you may not know is out of the top 100 multifamily rental companies in the United States, we are now processing 70% of the rent. That is why we are doing $36 billion. What that means is if you move into one of these buildings in the Bilt Rewards Alliance and you want to pay your rent, you have to pay it through Bilt, which means we have 100% member adoption in the largest multifamily housing buildings today. So if you go to pretty much any major or secondary city in the United States and you look at any big apartment complex, you walk outside, you will now see the Bilt brick and the Bilt Rewards Alliance emblem on the outside of that. And, I'll tell you, we're adding thousands of members a day now because of that, which means our member base is growing rapidly, and in order to get people to sign up for a co-brand card, just like any program, so it's a big step, right? It's a big decision for people in America still to apply for a credit card. If you want to supercharge your earnings, great, jump in there, and that's where the co-brand business fits today. Is you're getting points on your rent, again, soon to be mortgage. We'll talk about that more here in a second. But you want to get even more points, then you just logically get the Bilt card and no fee for additional points, and then everyday spend, again, no fee, no fee, no fee. It's great. So that's the co-brand business. That's what you know. Now, you probably didn't know about that payments platform. Now, just like every other company that's gone before us that collects and disperses rent, we get a percentage of every single rent payment. And we give, the difference is we now give a lot of that back in very valuable rewards. So if you're thinking, wow, you only get a couple percentage points or even less really, but that's on $36 billion. That's how we're affording this very rich loyalty program that we have, right? So the numbers scale pretty big. So that's kind of number one in the flywheel. Number two, connected commerce. Again, this didn't even exist in our dreams 3.5 years ago. But today, 80% of the income that our residents spend not on housing is done within 15 miles of their residence. So if you think about everywhere that you spend your money that's not your mortgage or rent payment, probably pretty close to your home. And we wanted to do the first connected loyalty platform for all of that spend to give people additional benefits and rewards where you always spend your money. The win on that is what I just said for members, additional rewards and benefits where you spend your money. The win for the merchants, these are 25,000 restaurants. This is Lyft. This is Blade. These are all the fitness studios and brands that we have. This is now Walgreens and soon to be gas, groceries, and even more. The win here is additional revenue from the people that live close to your store, right? So what we've replaced here is previously if you move into an apartment, you get like a paper welcome bag with a bunch of paper coupons from, Richard's Coffee Shop around the corner that says 10% off.
Yeah.
If we go to Richard's Coffee Shop and say, let's replace this one-time 10% off paper coupon, let's put you on the Bilt platform, and let's give people rewards and benefits for coming to your coffee shop around the corner on an ongoing perpetual basis, you're going to see increase engagement from the people that live close to you. And until Bilt existed, the ability for Richard's Coffee Shop to have that kind of marketing power, any loyalty program beyond, the standard thing that the little coffee shop can do of, get your 10th coffee, free on us after the first 9 visits, we have supercharged that. We're directly integrated into point of sale systems. We give Richard's Coffee Shop, again, my hypothetical example here, an incredible platform where they can log in and see, here are where all of my top customers are coming from in this building. I can give that building a promotion, and everybody in that building is now going to get a promotional email from Richard's Coffee Shop that says, come on in. I can target my most valuable customers with additional benefits, points, rewards. I can have it where I can see what, Ed has ordered the last 10 times coming in my coffee shop, and I know, as soon as he comes here and uses his connected card, I can just spit out, another free coffee for him through the Toast point of sale. Works a better example for restaurants where you have to make a reservation through OpenTable, Resi, etc. When you check in, because they're on the Bilt platform, they have that entire same experience, and we can automatically spit out drink tickets to the bartender, and then there's drinks are on the table by the time you get there after you check in. You can now see your bill right in the Bilt app. You can redeem Bilt points to cover all or portion of your tab. You don't have to wait on the waiter to check out anymore. You just pay with your house account, we call it, whatever card is connected to your Bilt app, and you get your points on your Amex Gold plus your 3X points for Bilt. Plus, you didn't have to wait on the server. Plus, you got a free round of drinks or an appetizer or whatever promotion, and you win big time. The merchant, on the other hand, gets all of this incremental business. Like, there's so much here on the flywheel,
and the merchant is giving you guys a commission for that, which is what's helping drive.
And we get a commission of that. Yeah. And if you look at these there's so many layers once you dig into this. So we're just covering the very high level. But if I have a restaurant, and I'm speaking Ed's language here, and Mondays and Tuesdays are my slow nights, but I'm full Fridays and Saturdays, I'm not going to give as many rewards and benefits on Fridays and Saturdays, but I'm going to go to the buildings within a 15-mile radius of me and say, hey, if you come in on Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm going to give you 5X Bilt points and a free round of drinks. And I know that my margin per table of people coming in, because my fixed costs are my fixed costs, whether it's Monday or Friday, but every table I drive on a slow day is significantly more margin, that I'm willing to give a small percentage of that back to Bilt to drive that, and that's a win for everybody. So it's just really cool, the data, insights, campaigns, and capabilities that all of these merchants can do themselves, and it's going to grow, and we get a commission off of every dollar spent. Whether you use the Bilt card or any debit or credit card linked to your Bilt account, I don't care what it is. It's a win for us, a win for the merchant, a win for the member. And it's just, driven billions in spend here in the first year that this has existed, right? So that's number 2, connected neighborhood commerce, and I'll tell you there's just so much more coming there. And then number 3 is leasing and housing incentives. You saw the first kind of round of this in buy a Bilt house or buy a house through the Bilt app last year and get, 1 Bilt point for every $2. We get a referral fee from the EXP network for every time somebody closes a house. Use some of that to fund the points, and then we keep the commission on that. There is $30 billion a year spent on leasing incentives by the top 100 landlords in the United States. Previously, all they really could do is give away cash, where they would say, hey, move in, get a free month's rent. That cost me in this building $3,000.
Right.
Well, now those landlords can come to Bilt and they can buy Bilt points. They can spend way less than $3,000, but they can give much higher value because of the value of Bilt points, to a potential leaser or customer buyer. And you can run, again, we have screenshots and some of the slides that I just wish everybody could see here. Maybe I'll get permission from Ankur that we can overlay it here so you can just see the real power of what we call the resident loyalty portal. If I'm a landlord on the Bilt system, I can go in and use all of the things Bilt has at its disposal and do campaigns, anything that I want to do to drive the member behavior I want from my tenants. So sign a lease early, get 50,000 Bilt points.
Right.
Live in New York City, refer a friend, here's 5 Blade credits. Hey, you want to come and tour an apartment? I'll give you Lyft credit to come to my building and back home so that you can just get here for free to see the building. You got local restaurants around us, priority reservations, and bonus points. It's your birthday, here's 500 Bilt points. We had a maintenance failure, here's Bilt points. Here's anything in the Bilt ecosystem. They control all of this through a very easy-to-use platform. And that $30 billion of spend that used to go just to free rent is now coming through the Bilt platform to offer incentives and promotions and campaigns that people who lease and soon to be paying mortgage can use. And it's just a massive savings tool and power to the landlord. But also, if you offer me $3,000 or 150,000 Bilt points, which one do you think I'm going to take? Right?
I know what I'm going to take.
I'm going to take the 150,000 Bilt points, and that costs, I can't tell you exact numbers, but less than the $3,000 that a building would have given me a free month's rent on. So getting all those leasing and soon to be mortgage incentives, through Bilt is the third flywheel. And as you get people in this ecosystem, and now that mortgage is coming on, which I'll touch on briefly here, wherever you are, right? It's home and neighborhood spend. You now get benefits, rewards where you never got it before. And it just scales so fast on us, and it's just doing so well. And everybody here thinking, I thought Bilt was a credit card company. Like, it's just not the case. We expect to have a lot of iterations. We've heard you loud and clear that why isn't there a premium Bilt card so I get even more benefits, even more travel benefits, even more rewards? Like, we've heard you, and, the letter's pretty open about a Bilt card 2.0 coming. But again, we expect that to stay 15 to 20% of our member base just because of how fast we are growing in the other,
right.
3 areas of the flywheel. That while it's going to be an important part of the business, and it's, we're going to make sure people who want to deep dive into the Bilt and really supercharge their earnings, you're going to be able to do that with some of the best cards out there. Like, it's still going to be 15 to 25% of the business, while these other 3 things make up 75%, right? So, mortgages start next year. I don't know exactly when. I can tell you that, some agreements are signed. It's a done deal. It's not just us saying stuff. And when we talk about $36 billion in rent now and growing every single month, so the annualized we expect to double by next year, mortgage, on the other hand, is $1.4 trillion that can go through our rails when this is up and running. So 36 billion is great. 72 billion is even better. 1.4 trillion with a T is just another kind of business that we're talking about here. So I hope you got the letter. Look, I'm going to post it, on Reddit. It's going to be there. I would say that's probably the best place to go and ask questions. I'm sure that thread's just going to be all kinds of interesting, obligation. One final point I will make that everybody assumes. So I hope you can see we're profitable today. We're profitable cash flow business. We don't need VC money. We're not burning VC money. Number 2 is we do not sell your personal data. We never have. We never will. We have no plans. It doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons. So everybody who thinks that we're taking this information, we're selling it, we are absolutely not selling any personal data to make any of our money. That is nowhere on the flywheel. It will not be in the flywheel. Final. Don't know how else to say that. So hope that debunks another huge speculation I see all the time. So all that said, Ed, what do you think?
Well, I think this goes back to these all can be profitable businesses for both you and the consumer. I think for folks who are out there and ask these questions, I think one thing you point out was the percentage of credit card holders. And I would imagine that the card portfolio is probably some of your less profitable customers, because people like me who hold out for larger transfer bonuses and stuff like that, we're probably more highly represented in the co-brand card package than in the renter package, if you will. So, I would imagine I'm a less profitable customer than your average customer.
I mean, I'll say yes. And that was certainly true 3 years ago when we launched, and we just launched heavily in the points and mile space. But I'll tell you over time that it has evened out.
Sure.
And even if you are, holding out for those transfer bonuses and what everybody assumes that we're just burning VC money on, I hope you see that there's other parts of the flywheel that are funding these things in a sustainable manner.
Yeah.
And we are still, I can look up your exact profile and tell your
Thanks.
lifetime value. You got to use the credit card, right, to get those rewards. And you got to really stockpile the rewards by using the credit card a whole lot, which is how we make money off the interchange. So we'll be surprised if we were losing money off of you, but it's probably pretty close.
Well, and the reason why I bring that point up is I think when we talk about everything in the flywheel here, I am the least profitable. My profile is the least profitable customer you have, and I am a subset of 15% of your business. So when we think about the whole arc of things here, the rest of your customers are likely, on average, more profitable than I am. And I am a subset of 15%. Because I think we even say, like, of the 15% that's co-brand, not all of us are nerds like me waiting for 100 or 150% sign-up bonus. That's probably still only 5 or 10% of the co-brand portfolio.
It's the things I see get thrown around again by the diehards in points and miles world, just because there hasn't been a full explanation of this before. But a couple of things I'll tell you. They're like, you guys lowered the 10,000 point bonus on rent day to the 1,000 point bonus. This is absolutely useless, and you're going to kill your program. I'm like, you have to understand. And I shared these numbers in the TBG interview I did. Like 0.08 of 15% of people of the entire member base ever hit the 10,000 point cap.
Yeah.
You are talking about a minute portion of our membership base that is even applicable to. So while I understand that absolutely stinks for people like me who did everything I could to hit that cap, it's not representative of any fundamental cash in or cash out of, our program. What that did was just solve the loophole where people were just taking it to the extreme and doing some things that I'm not going to talk about, where it's like, true to form, like we've all said, the few ruin it for the many. And I have to solve for the few of you who are just doing egregious things, and now you've ruined it for the many. But the people doing that don't care. They're happy to slaughter the pig instead of just take small bites of it as they go, which is what I would tell everybody. Like, if you don't want good things killed, the way that you guys just take everything to the absolute max is just wild. So I say that as a person who participated in that circa 2012 to 2017, but totally get why the programs have to make changes.
Yeah, bottom line for me, looking at all the things here, what I would say is I don't think that, to me, there's no surprises in how you make money off of rent, how you make money off of, the co-brand portfolio. The neighborhood stuff you talked about from a restaurant standpoint, totally drives me. Having that data on customers is hugely valuable for restaurants that don't have loyalty programs. So absolutely, I'd be willing to pay a commission to that. So I definitely see all those pieces. I'm going to be really interested to see how you guys roll out mortgages. You and I have talked about it a bit offline, but I think that's the next piece that I'll be really interested to see how you tackle it. That being said, I think, I don't think I'm throwing a softball when I say, based on everything else you guys have figured out, I have enough confidence that whatever model you build will not be one that you lose your shirt on.
Yeah, we're certainly not above taking a risk, and we've done that a few times. I mean, like, left-hand turn, that didn't work out, but not anything at scale. So this has been pretty well thought out. On top of all the regulatory things that you got to go through when you start touching mortgage.
God bless you for that.
It's significant, which is why it keeps taking us longer and longer. But look, man, we're excited about it. That's obviously a whole new customer base, but it just didn't make sense to start on rent and then have somebody move into home ownership and then kick them out. So really excited about 2025. Hope this was interesting. Please send us comments, questions. Find the Reddit thread. I'm sure it'll be at the top of that subreddit. Slack members, shoot me a message. But I'm excited.
All good stuff. And as you said, when this launches, you'll be knee deep in Disney and shoulder deep in Standby Skipper. So I hope that everybody will just hammer you with messages while you're down there.
I'm sure they will. It's going to be an interesting week, and I'm sure we'll recap how it went next week's episode.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear how it is down there. I hope you don't freeze, and I hope it's an incredible anniversary or birthday dinner with Mrs. Kerr. Until we upload again, Mr. Kerr, we've got miles to go. Keep asking you uncomfortable questions. That's my goal in life.